So I had put out a poll on Facebook asking, what would you like to talk about? Because I have two things that are really on my mind right now. And so I wanted to get you, the viewers, the listeners, my friends, to tell me which one you wanted to hear. And so it was politics or church. And so I made a decision because actually politics was tracking 2-1 over church. But some people say, hey, want to talk about church. So we're going to talk about politics and church because I think that there are some tangents, some points of connection that can be made with both of these. And so we're going to touch on a little of that. And so buckle up your seatbelts, pour yourself up a drink. I didn't get a chance to get my scotch going because I was actually working and before I started this, and I was on a call like right up to the last minute. But anyway, I want to throw something out here, and I said this earlier this week in a post that you don't need church. You don't need church. Now, when I say that, I don't mean you don't need the church because the church is you. So you do need you and you do need others, right? But I talked about this earlier in another installment that love everybody, but there are some people that you need to learn to love from a safe distance. And I gave this analogy. I love big cats, tigers, lions, leopards. Oh my. Love them. But I really don't want to be up close and personal with them because they could eat me. Now, I love them and I don't want anyone to harm them, but I understand that they're dangerous to me. So I make sure that I observe a safe distance from big cats. Likewise, I'm fascinated by reptiles and even poisonous snakes. But I know that I can't go fucking around with a king cobra. It just doesn't work. So the point that I'm getting at is that we all need each other to survive. But I also believe that there is a reason that the brain is a sufficient distance from the anus. Because if the brain, and listen, I know some of y'all out there, you got jokes. You got jokes. And some people you think they're thinking through their anus, right? No, 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 no. That's just a figure of speech. But there's a safe distance between particular organs. And there's a reason for that. That's the intelligent design thing. So don't feel like you have to put yourself in a position with people who are difficult to the point where they present a toxicity to you. Okay? So I go back to my original premise and I say that you don't need church. You don't need to go off to the building. You don't need to go to the First Baptist Church of God, Pentecostal, Oh My Lord, Church of God in Christ, Assemblies of God, Incorporated. You don't need to go there. And that organization will be fine without you. Trust me. And what I mean by that is because people say, well, if people don't come, then the churches may fold. Well, I would say that that's a sure way of finding out if God is really involved in it or not. Because if God is really involved in it, it'll work itself out. And I just believe that. And understand God is not just going to come supernaturally write checks and all of that. But what will happen is that, the God consciousness of that particular local body, if it is truly a thing where they're raising up people in God consciousness, that the God consciousness will raise up in individuals and they'll show up. That's how you know. But it's like right now with the pandemic and all of that, there's going to be a lot of these quote unquote churches that go under, and I'm not celebrating that. Listen. I'm not celebrating anybody's failure. Don't want to ever do that. But what I'm saying is that you'll find out whether or not these things really are godly or not. And this whole thing about church when it comes to religion, and we had a well-known university president, son of an evangelist who was the founder of this university, that he gets caught up in this sexual thing. He and his wife and some, the pool boy. I hate to say that because that's I don't want to be diminishing to him. But there's this threesome that's going on, and let me tell you something. However you get down sexually, that's your thing, right? What two or three or four or five consenting adults choose to do, that's your thing. As the Isley brothers say, it's your thing. Do what you want to do. I can't tell you who to sock it to. If you get down like that, that's your thing. No judgment. However, when you have made a living on telling people that they can't even hug for more than 3 seconds, or that if you are conducting a sexual relationship outside the confines of biblical marriage, that you can be booted from the school, that you could be excommunicated, basically everything that you've had invested into this degree program, it could be all for naught. And that's horrible. So there's a hypocrisy that is baked into that. And this hypocrisy, just like how when you're baking a cake, you need to make sure that you don't overfill the pan. Why? Because if you overfill the pan, some of the cake may spill over and make a mess in your oven. That, my friends, is what we have here. We have the cake of sexuality that a little bit too much has been poured into the pan and it has spilled over, and now it's making a mess of the oven of politics. Are y'all with me? Whew. And this whole thing, and let me say this, I want to make a couple of things really clear here, because for most of my adult life, I was a Republican and I was a conservative. Most of my life. I don't identify with the Democrats as a party. However, I think that the Republicans have become too immersed in particular issues. They are too invested in abortion, and they are too invested in genitalia. In other words, sexuality. So you have these two things that they've invested. I mean, basically, they have poured their cake batter into the pan, and now it's coming up that this is overfilled, and it's making a mess of things. Now, I say that to say that I'm not a Democrat. However, I want to make it perfectly clear to anybody who's listening that I am not a Trump supporter. Period. Full stop. I believe that everything that this man has done has been absolutely horrible for this country. And understand this, that he is not the problem. Y'all hear me? He's not the problem. All he is the symptom. He's that boil on your ass that says that you have cancer. Now, the boil itself is just a manifestation of the cancer. It's not the cancer itself. This cancer has been growing in the body politic pretty much since the inception of this country. And what do I mean by that? When you begin with a premise that says that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, but Native Americans are not counted in the overall count, and people of African descent are counted as 3/5 of a person. Now I know there are people that say, well, Derek, they just counted them as 3/5 of a person so that the North wouldn't overrun the South and they could have this good compromise and they could forge this republic. And I say bullshit, because these were smart guys. These were highly intelligent, highly educated men. And they chose to subjugate entire groups of people. And while proclaiming liberty to people that look like them. Now, that is the birth defect of the United States of America, and you can't do anything with that. But it's like one of those things where you have the part of a sympathetic twin that some part of it is still in the abdomen of the baby. Well, you know that if you want this baby to have a complete and whole life, that you have to deal with this birth defect. You have to do something to excise that in order to make sure that the child grows up to have a normal, healthy life. This cancer that this country was born with was never dealt with. It has grown. It has transformed. It has manifested in many different ways, and it has not been dealt with. And here's the problem, because this is how the church gets involved in this, because the church had a part to play in how people were subjugated. In other words, it was through Christianity that Indians or Native Americans were driven off their lands, and it's the same Christianity that was used to justify and perpetuate slavery. It is the same Christianity that denied women the right to vote, and it's the same Christianity that supported Jim Crow. It is the same Christianity that rolled back Reconstruction. It is the same Christianity that segregated the military. It is the same Christianity that forced people to have to go to government to get basic human rights. And there's no way that a human being, because here's the thing, when you talk to a strict constructionist, and that is people who parse the Constitution literally, in other words, they parse it line by line, that when you talk to a strict constructionist, that they say that basically everybody is enfranchised. But the reality is that they're not. In order for blacks to be liberated, it required a civil war. And the Native Americans were never repaid for the land that was stolen from them. I mean, when you think about this, oil wells, gold mines, copper mines, iron mines, railroad throughways, interstate highways, all of these things, roadways, whatever, all of this stuff, this belonged to someone, and it was taken under the auspices of manifest destiny. And now we fast forward to 2020, and people are saying, well, I don't understand why people are rioting and looting. Because they'll say, well, rioting and looting aren't necessary to protest. And my response, and this is not original, somebody else has said it, but I'm cribbing it for right now, and that is that arrests don't have to happen with murder. If riots don't have to happen in a protest, then murders don't have to happen in an arrest. And and again, if you go out into the blogosphere or social media or whatever you want to call it online, that the vast majority of people that are trying to castigate this man that was shot in Kenosha, that they are Christians, and that this young man who his mama drove him from Illinois to Wisconsin so that he could go out and do target practice on some niggers and I said that, yeah, with his AR-15. And and that's okay. The Christian blogosphere, social media crowd, they're defending this. So excuse me if I fail to embrace your faith, because based on the manifestation, in other words, your Bible says that we should judge by the fruit, not by appearance, but by the fruit. And the fruit of American Christianity is rotten. Better yet, it's not just rotten, it's fucking toxic. And let me say this, because I need to back up. I need to give you guys a little bit of history. Because when I was in the Navy from 1980 to 1987, and actually before then, and probably a little bit after that, that I cussed like a sailor. I was a sailor. I was in the Navy. And that euphemism, cuss like a sailor, oh baby, did that ever apply to me? Yes, it did. I could go ham with the best of them. Fee, fi, fo, file, filth. Fuck. Could do it with the best of them. But when I saw that, listen, I wanted to advance in my professional career. I had my eyes on some political things, and then ministry happened to me, and I realized I couldn't do these things anymore. Just couldn't say. There were certain things I couldn't say anymore. But then, like last year, there were some folks, and I'm not going to name names, but there were some folks, and some of y'all know these folks, that they had issues because I had A, used some profanity, and B, did a social media post concerning drugs and alcohol that they thought wasn't really fitting and proper of a man of God. And then I said something with concerning a cuss word, particularly the F-bomb, our good friend fuck. I said that, and they were like, well, there are things, we want to partner with you, and we want you to be able to do some things with us and help us to expand this ministry that we're doing. But we need you to kind of dial it back a notch. So I told him, I said, well, I'll consider it. I'll take that under consideration. But then in the interim, we had an incident of police violence or police brutality. And I tried to speak out against this. I tried to speak up. I tried to raise awareness and listen, I've been doing this shit all of my adult life. I've been doing it before social media, but now I got social media. So I was using that. And these same people, they said, oh, Derek, don't sit up and rail about social justice and oppression. And no, Derek, don't do that. Just stick to preaching the gospel, Derek. And I was like, wait a second. And then it came back to the whole profanity thing again. And I said, wait a second. I said, this is what you're telling me is that you have more issues with me saying fuck than you do with police killing black people. Oh, no, 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 Derek, that's not what we're saying. No, that's exactly what you're saying because I'm looking at your fruit and you ain't said shit. Now, you're supposed to be a Christian, a bishop, doctor, whatever, right? You're supposed to. I'm expecting that if you have respect for me as a person and my 5 black sons, that maybe, just maybe, you might say something. But instead, you try to silence me. What they do that for? And I was like, you know something? At this point, I don't care. I honestly stopped giving a fuck at that point about what religious people thought. Because again, when I look at the people who support these militias and these yahoos that go out and kill black people, and then they have these cops that kill black people, and the ones that are doing the whole Blue Lives Matter and All Lives Matter, which y'all know that that's just knee-jerk reactions to Black Lives Matter because in their mind, Black lives don't matter. And speaking up changes the narrative. And they don't want the narrative changed. They want us to be good little niggers and don't say anything. Well, this whole Christianity trying to dominate politics, this all goes back to the Southern strategy of Richard Nixon, and it was elevated to high art by Lee Atwater. When he said you can't say the N-word, but you can say forced busing, or you could say school choice, or you could say low taxes, and all of these are things that would deliberately hurt black people. So this is basically the modern day way of saying the N-word. You can't say that. He said in his speech to the Republicans prior to Reagan getting elected, this is, you can't say this. You can't say these things. And mind you, they put a nice Christian face on this. What they did is they crafted this thing called the moral majority. And the moral majority was there to raise the ire of Christian Americans regarding all of these issues that are basically upsetting the racial order of things in this country. So what the moral majority and later the Conservative Coalition and later the Tea Party, their wet dream of a country is a Christian theocracy where minorities and women know their place, where immigrants who don't look like the majority are unwelcome, where economic differences between ethnicities are magnified. This is the wet dream of the Christian conservative church. Now, I for one, it doesn't appeal to me. It doesn't work for me in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But I'm going to tell you something. I got encouraged in 2020 because one of the things that happened is I got to see who my friends really are. Because let me explain something to you about the whole racism thing, and it's this, that when when people are oppressed or disenfranchised or otherwise discriminated against, there's a trauma that's associated with that. There's both an individual trauma and there's a corporate trauma. And this trauma is akin to grieving. Now, one of the things that you absolutely, listen, if you've been doing pastoral ministry or anything like that for any amount of time, you know that you do not tell somebody how to grieve. Listen, me personally, I had to bury a spouse. I understand grief at a very upfront and personal level. But even though one thing that I will not do, because I've had some close relatives that have lost spouses since then, and I will say, listen, if you need somebody to talk to, I've been through it. But I'm not going to tell you I feel your pain or I know what you're going through, because I don't. Everybody grieves differently. And so for these Christian conservative types to sit up and tell black people, oh, well, you shouldn't be upset about this, about people being killed. They were lawbreakers. This shouldn't bother you. You're a law-abiding citizen. It shouldn't bother you. Or you shouldn't stop bringing up the past. Stop bringing up slavery. Stop bringing these things, because all you're doing is just you're stirring up old shit. But these same Christians will talk about Oklahoma City and 9/11 and say, never forget. Never forget. So not only are they telling us what to grieve, but they're also telling us how we should grieve. And I'm going to tell you something. Right now, there are some people who are listening who are going through some stuff. And I want to tell you that I want to see it through your eyes. I want to empathize and have compassion for your pain. I'm sorry that you have to endure what you're enduring right now. I don't know who it is, but I want you to know that you are loved and you are valued, and this is the whole thing that I have been asking for. I don't want anybody to kiss my ass. I don't want anybody to give me preferential treatment. I don't want any of that. I just want someone to say, listen, I understand, or I want to understand. And there are some really wonderful, wonderful people, and I could call off names, but I'm not. I'll do that in a separate social media post. That white people who have put their time, talent, and treasure at stake to try to correct these wrongs. Some of them have gone to marches and protests. Some of them have been abused at the hands of law enforcement. Some of them, it has cost them relationships with their siblings or their parents. But they have chosen to stand with Black Americans because they understand that we're grieving, that we're hurt, and we're traumatized. And the thing that irritates me, this is why I've been sitting on this, it's been festering, is that I, as a pastor, told people that the church should be a hospital where people can go to be made whole, where they can go and get help, where they can go and get relief. And you know what? It's like we go to Christian America and we get, oh, suck it up, buttercup. Don't be a snowflake. Don't be a rabble rouser. Don't rock the boat. Jesus is going to take care. Let me stop right there, because see, I'm going to say something, and this is going to, you know what? I'm going to tell you something. Jesus had 400 fucking years to take care of this. Now, this is not a swipe at Jesus. Let me make that perfectly clear. And it's not a swipe at God. Let me make that perfectly clear, because the reality is that Jesus don't take the wheel. Y'all need to get out of that mindset. This in your Bible, in Genesis chapter 1 verses 26 through 28, God gave man dominion. That means the authority over all the things in the earth falls to humanity. And that means that in this 400 years that blacks have been enslaved, subjugated, segregated, and otherwise discriminated against, this is something that the church had 400 years to fix, and they failed. Failed. Epically. Failed. Miserably. Failed. Fucking failed. That's the truth. That's the truth. And this whole political system, let me say this about that, because if this country is going to do right by all of its citizens, at some point in the not too distant future, there needs to be a constitutional convention convened. And the Constitution needs to either be highly amended or rewritten. And if it's rewritten, look here, you strict constructionists, don't get mad, because the Constitution was meant to be a living document. It was not supposed to be sacrosanct like you think your Bible is. It has provisions to be changed. Now, and if these changes don't result in the change that is necessary, then perhaps it is time to look at a total re-engineering of it. And this is the beautiful thing, is that if we come to the point where we do a honest re-engineering of the Constitution, that there will be people at the table this go round that weren't at the beginning. Because it won't just be white landowning men. There will be women. There will be blacks. There will be Native Americans. There will be people of Indian descent and people of Latin descent. People of Asian descent. There will be LGBTQ brothers and sisters that sit at that table. And all of these people will have an interest. And all of these interests will have to be served in order to craft a republic that will last. Because you need to understand something, that what we have today is not sustainable. When black people cannot go for redress for the wrongs that have been done to them, when Native Americans cannot go for redress for the things that have been done to them, when migrant families are separated, parents and children are separated, when people, that whole thing about on the Statue of Liberty about huddled masses yearning to be free, man, you can cast that shit in the toilet if you're not willing to open the borders and let people come in. I mean, and all of this racism, discrimination, oppression, disenfranchisement, that all of this happens with, if not the permission of the church, certainly a blessing of the church. So when people come to me and they say, well, Derek, are you like not a Christian anymore? No, I'm not a Christian. Proud to say it. Do I love Jesus? Absolutely. I just don't love the way you've taught Jesus. And I don't like the way you've used Jesus. And I understand some things. So I'm going to take everything that I have and everything that I know to help elevate the consciousness of others so that they can awaken and realize that, number one, that we are all in this together. And because we are all in this together, we are the image and the likeness, we are God in the earth. And the one thing, the takeaway from that is that, or from your Christianity with that, is that how you honor God, honor people like that. That's how you honor God. Because if you say, oh, I honor God, I love God, I love Jesus, but these filthy, dirty immigrants and these filthy, dirty blacks and all, listen, if that's where you are, you need help. I'm not gonna tell you that you're wrong, but you need help. You need help. So this whole thing, I say to say that the whole political thing, and this is another thing that really bothers me, is that we have this election coming up, and there are some people that legitimately, honestly, heartfelt want to vote for something other than a Democrat or a Republican. And ordinarily I would say that's great. That's great because in the last election, full transparency, I voted for Gary Johnson. I deeply regret that now because I understood. I had no idea how bad Trump was going to be. So I say this to say that perhaps in the next election cycle in 2024, that perhaps there will be an opportunity for third-party candidates to get on board and maybe upset the apple cart of the two-party system. Not likely, but hey, keep hope alive, like Jesse Jackson said. But if you're voting third party right now, you're not really voting your conscience, because if you look at this situation, what we have now, right this minute, is not sustainable. Basically, 4 more years of what we had will lead to the demise of the United States of America as we know it. There is no getting around that. And so if you are basically, if you vote and reelect this guy, basically you're going to get 4 more years of 2020. And man, 2020 has been fucked up. And before you think that it can't get any worse, let me tell you something. From the ethical, moral standpoint, we pretty much hit bottom. The problem is that, when we talk about peaks and troughs, we can do things to control the peaks and troughs. We do that with money supply. We do that with a lot of things, right? But if we go 4 more years of this, basically what we have is this trough played out for another 4 more years, or possibly longer. Yeah, you never know. Because, a lame duck president is already pretty powerful. This guy as a lame duck is not a good look. It's not a good look. And like I said, I'm not a big fan of Joe Biden. I'm not a big fan of Kamala Harris. I'm not a fan of either one of them. You know, I really believe that from a person standpoint, that Bernie Sanders was the guy. That's me personally. Um, but we didn't get him. And that's water under the bridge. Spilt milk. Can't do anything about it. The horse is out of the barn. Can't do anything about it. However, we can get someone in who's not this guy or his administration. And listen, people have asked me, they say, hey, do you hate Trump? I don't hate anybody. But just like I said, I love tigers, but I keep tigers at a safe distance because tigers are dangerous. So I also don't think that you want me to be your orthopedic surgeon. I'm a smart guy. I have pretty steady hands. I'm pretty good with tools. But you honestly don't want me doing your surgery. I'm not qualified. Now, if you want, you know, enterprise cloud solutions, executive coaching, writing, things like that, technology, I'm your guy. I can do it. But I'm not in no ways qualified to be president of the United States. And I think listen, I'm not a guy that has any shortage of self-esteem. I actually think pretty highly of myself. You should too. But that's not, no, you shouldn't think highly of me. You should think highly of yourself. Let me clarify that. But the thing is that we are in a situation. I mean, honestly, we are at a point where there are some serious decisions that have to be made, and we can't be fucking around, y'all. We just can't. We can't. So I say all this to say that first of all, I would love to see the two-party system go away. You know, I would love to see that. I would love to see that go away, and I would love to see more young people who really have an idea about how to really shake things up and change things, because business as usual is not going to cut it. Either from the president to the Congress to the Supreme Court, none of the branches of government. What we're doing now, y'all, this is a train wreck waiting to happen. Sorry, that's what it is. So for all, listen, if you are cool with a theocracy that is going to tell women what they could do with their bodies, that is going to further discriminate against blacks, Native Americans, and Latinos, and take away the gains of the LGBTQ community. If you're cool with all of that, hey, the status quo works. But I can tell you this, that if you take a can of soda and shake it, and just shake the hell out of it. When you pop that rascal open, you're going to have a mess on your hands. And there are people in this country who have been shaking. And there have been people that are on the sidelines saying, stop shaking. Stop shaking. You want this to spill out all over the place? And yes, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, that not only will this spill out all over the country, but it will spill out all over the world. And what I'm really loving right now is that a lot of people in foreign countries, they're getting this. And they're speaking out against some of the things that are happening in this country. Matter of fact, you know, I say that if the United Nations were the United States, that they would invade the United States for the gross abuses that it has done against its citizens. And mind you, all of these gross abuses have happened with the permission and the blessing of the church. And when I say church, I'm not talking about you, the church, me, the church. I'm talking about the institutional church. I got a challenge I want to throw out to you before I wrap this thing up. September is right around the corner. Try going 30 days without putting into any institutional ministry. Do something else with the money. Invest it, save it, spend it, give it away to people who really need it. Do something different. And see what happens. See what happens. Because this is my theory, that the true institutions that are quote unquote ordained by God, or that God is really, God's cool with this. God is digging this. God likes it. Those institutions will work it out. They will be okay. But the ones that aren't, you'll know. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can hit me up at www.derekday.com. Go to the contact page and click contact. It'll give you a form. You can fill it out and it'll shoot me an email. And if you send me an email, I promise I'll reply. Also, you can hit me up on Instagram or Twitter. My handle is Derek E. Day. That's DERRICKEDAY. And also, I'm still looking for your help. I want to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Since my last pitch, I've gained about 100. Beautiful thing. But I still have more to go. I'm not quite 300 away. So I have almost 5,000 Facebook friends, 2,000 Instagram followers, 13,000 Facebook page likes, and 7,000 Twitter followers. Somewhere out there, y'all, hook a brother up. I'm not asking you for any money. Just asking you to click subscribe. That's it. That's it. Real simple. Free and cheap. Okay. Also, be sure to check out the Heretic Happy Hour, where I am joined by Katie Valentine, Matthew DiStefano, and Keith Giles. And while I'm talking about Keith Giles, make sure that you check out his new book. And I believe that it's called Jesus Unchained. I could be wrong, but if I'm wrong, Keith, correct me on that, and I'll put the right link in. And also check out my blog, Love Minus Religion, on pathos.com. And also I'll have a new episode of the Love Forward podcast early next week. So that is pretty much what I have for you. And I know that there are going to be some people that are going to say, man, thank you for telling it like it is. And there are going to be some folks that will be like, that fucker there. And either way, it's all right. Because at the end of the day, I'm just a guy. I'm just a messenger. But honestly, having lived here all my life and served this country in uniform for 7 years, I love this country. And I just want to see it live up to the full potential of its creed. That we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that all Americans are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that is, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So until next time, namaste. I see the God in you. Namaste. I see the light in you. Love you.